was being taped because all the sheriff's department calls it tape. It doesn't bother me. They You always figure they know everything anyway.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Ted. How are you doing?
Well, I'm hanging in there. I just got the bug last week and wanted to chat with you briefly because we usually have been away for a long time.
Yeah, right.
And
right. How are things going for you over there?
Well, quite well, quite frankly. I was just talking to someone the other day, and the experience of coming over here is one of those, those good things, bad things kind of things. I wouldn't, if I hadn't come over here, I probably wouldn't be looking at a new trial in the Carol Durange case.
Yeah.
And the whole number of things have opened up, and I suppose that, if I have to spend several years behind bars, it might as well spend a little here, a little there.
You kind of get a little variety, huh?
Right.
Yeah. They treating you pretty good?
Well, yeah, sure they are. It's
That's good.
They've developed this paranoia about me. They have this unrealistic fear that I'm going to escape or so.
I can't imagine where they're getting that.
Yes, exactly. Let's see. I just wanted to call you up. Mainly, there's a lot of things have been happening. They had the escape adventure, which caused a great furor of activity around here, and I guess some publicity over there. And now we're looking at what looks like a 95% chance of a new trial in the Carol Durange case. And while this case over here gets curiouser and curiouser because they've added a couple of additional Utah alleged transactions, in their attempt to gain a conviction in the Colorado case.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been so overwhelmed by work recently that there's just a lot to do. But way back when I was, I guess it was back in April when I decided to represent myself in this case. I was just thinking to myself, I can hear Al think, yeah, I knew we'd try to do something like that.
yeah, I knew you would.
Well, I remember one time you commented, I can't remember whether something I read in your report. I think it may have been something I read in one of your reports, quite frankly. That I can't delegate responsibility or something to that effect. I don't know. I don't think it's exactly the way you put it, but
yeah, I can't remember.
But something more or less that I like to, do things myself and have a hard time entrusting things to others. I can't remember how you
high achievement.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, I was just I was just wondering. I know you're really at arm's length on this thing, and we haven't really talked personally, obviously, since the latter part of January.
Yeah, right.
But any impressions about all that you've been hearing about me and Okay,
how do you mean?
Well, like the escape and everything. I wonder what your impression of that was. Just from a party who knows me, but who didn't have an opportunity to speak to me either just before or after that happened.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is something that'd be fun to sit down and chat with you about an hour.
Yeah.
And I had mixed impressions. I was wondering if you were really getting uptight, and the pressure looked like it was on, And I was wondering if it was looked like in your mind that you were going to be convicted. So when the opportunity was there, and you just took it to leave.
Yeah.
I'd like to have been able to sit down with you before and after to see,
Well, after anyway.
Right. Yeah, just to see what was happening. Yeah. What in your own mind, what was happening? What was the reason for it?
I'd given it a great deal of thought. I'd been moved from Aspen, been in the Aspen, Pitkin County Jail, which is in Aspen, from January 31st until April the 11th, which is 73 days. I have all this memorized, And in Aspen, I was an open affair. The jail was very small. Let's see, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cells, and and all the doors are open all the time. The place had been built in 1887, but it was just, here is where I could come out and we could relate to talk to other prisoners, go in their cell, something like at the state prison, not like back in the main line.
Mm-hmm.
And then they moved me down here. This is prior to the escape, because I was a security risk, and they put me in a 6 by 12 by 8 foot high cell and ordered no one to speak to me. And quite frankly, that's when I decided to represent myself. At least I got to, get out to go to the library. There's only situations where, concrete, solid steel door with a little window and the food slot. I mean, this is worse than the hole. Honestly, Al, this is worse than the hole.
Yeah.
In Max, because there you can at least talk to people and see people.
Uh-huh.
And it's worse than Max because they have for exercise except for the 6 days I was out on escape since 11th of April.
Uh-huh.
So this was building up and building up and building up. And I had, over the months, I had noticed a number of opportunities to just walk right out. But I didn't know quite how to put it all together. I was, as you say, I was very concerned about what people would think.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't, people say, weren't you afraid people that someone would shoot you or something? So no, it was one of the lower fears in my higher fears.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that day I came there and I thought a great deal about escape, and I didn't know if I had the guts to do it, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And the guard went outside for a smoke, and there's not one person in the whole courtroom. You'd have to see the courthouse in Aspen. The windows are open, and the fresh air is blowing through, and the sky was blue. And I said, I'm ready to go, and I walked to the window and jumped out.
Yeah.
And I started chugging, and I had no plan. I had nobody helping me. I had no money. I had no nothing.
Yeah.
And just ran right up into the mountains.
Huh.
But anyway, when I was recaptured, they brought me back in, and I spoke very freely about my adventures during those 6 days because it was something I really couldn't deny. But one of the investigators of the work case came into the room after I'd been there for some time and said, would you like to talk about the Campbell case? Would you like to tell me all about it now, Ted? More or less what you want to confess and all this stuff. Because, I could see the twinkle in his eyes that, he thought that I panicked and now the jig was up and I was ready to bust open. And I told him, I said, Mike, listen, I jumped out of the window because I want to be free. 2 years ago I could have walked out of the courthouse and, no one would have charged me with any crime. No one would even have noticed. As far as I was concerned, I was just what belonged to me. And it wasn't a fear of conviction. It wasn't, because I believe then, and I believe more firmly now that I will be acquitted. And and not only that, I'll get a new trial in Durant. The irony of it all, Al, is that probably the only offense that they will ever get a solid conviction on me will be the escape.
Yeah, right.
But I told him, honest to God, I just got sick and tired of being locked up, and I thought, because way back then I knew that I had this new evidence on Durant, although I hadn't given it to anybody yet, wondering what to do with it. And I knew that the case for me here was good, that the case they had was weak. But I kept saying to myself, Ted, if you invent that you're acquitted here in Colorado, and you go back to Utah, and let's say you get a new trial in Durant, which I estimate would take 3 years, because even if we win at the trial court level with a new trial, the state will appeal, and if the Supreme Court overturns, we'll have to go to the federal court, and the federal courts take years and years. And even if I got a new trial in Durant 3 years from, there's a chance I could be convicted just basically on the publicity of the whole thing. I'm pretty notorious. And, if I was acquitted 4 years from now in Durant's case, what would I have left? Maybe unrealistically, but I asked myself, could you go to law school? Could you live? Could you, would your friends be able to look you in the eye? Could you be Ted Bundy again? And I figured, whether you're free tomorrow or whether you're free 4 years from now, you're still going to have to make an entirely new life and really hide from your old life, whether you would legitimately or illegitimately.
Yeah.
So those are the priorities then. And I wasn't up against the wall. I mean, it was something I could have done then, something I could have waited to do. But it was just, I honestly just fed, you know, way up above my chin with being locked up.
Right.
Yeah, it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But I just there's still the scars from the blisters on my feet. I'm sitting here barefoot from running around in the mountains. An extraordinary experience because I had thought that I'm a pretty strong-willed person. But, you know, believe it or not, it was the body that was strong, but the mind that was weak. That the morning after, well, I ran up, you know, like 4,000 feet of very steep hill. It was actually aspen for the other side. And they didn't know where in the world I was, and I was feeling really good that evening, and I started hiking up, and if I kept on hiking, I would have been long gone. But a very cold sleet and rainstorm hit me, and I got very cold. Then I went into a state of shock, and managed to find a cabin. And the cabin was just, you know, there was no way to get into it. And here I was shivering and hungry and cold. It was raining and blowing, and early the next morning, like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was just sitting there, seriously considering giving myself up. And it was just a complete mind blow for me.
Yeah.
Just longed for freedom for so long, and now, like I was living my ultimate dream, all of a sudden I was willing to throw it away because I was cold and hungry. And I said, my Lord. But I got in the cabin and recuperated, believe it or not, and had a second chance at it. And then I made a wrong turn, and then I hurt my knee, and 3-4 days of high altitude and cold got to me, and again my mind got weak. And it really kind of, again, when I was recaptured, I just stood there. I mean, I was just, that night when I walked back into Aspen, no one knew me. People saw me. No one could recognize me. But I just was totally disoriented. It was like an experience I've never known before. I just laid down like an animal ready to die. I mean, it was just an incredible experience. And I was disoriented, and you know, quite frankly, I hopped in a car and just drove. I knew I'd get caught. I mean, I didn't want to get caught, but I knew it would happen. But I was just so tired and
the best of the alternatives.
Yeah, and I just said, well, just to see what happens. And a fluke, actually, they stopped me. But, you know, anyway, that was one of the more profound experiences of
yeah, sounds like it.
Of being over here. Yeah. Certainly did cause a furor.
And you're spending most of your afternoons in the law library, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, I go up there every day for 3 hours. And,
I imagine you're really learning law.
Oh, goodness sakes. Yeah, I'm pretty darn good at this whole process. You know, won a couple fairly significant victories on Friday, last Friday in court. And I suppose that I've learned what the pitfalls of representing oneself are, and so I'm going to avoid those. But for the time being, I am doing I'm doing the work in the case, and the research, and I think we're pretty successfully. You know, considering the kinds of resources that are amassed against me, and the various law enforcement agencies and prosecutors who are working on this case, I think I'm more than holding my own. I think I'm giving them fits, quite frankly. And I don't. It's not just me. I mean, I'm not here. I'm not. I'm not some genius or anything. I think, but the fact of the matter is, you know, such a rather decrepit case that they're really having a hard time, putting it together, to say the least. I don't know if, they had quote an eyewitness, somebody had seen me at some place which, fit into their theory of things. And at the preliminary hearing, she looked at me and stood in the courtroom and picked an undersheriff as the person she had seen. So their case kind of collapsed at that point.
Yeah.
But right now they're hanging in there. I give them credit.
Yeah.
So, how are things over there? I've always wondered about you and a lot of my friends there and everything. I heard there was a killing not too long ago.
Yeah.